Donald Trump and Vice President Mike Pence are making calls throughout the weekend on health care and will pick up lobbying efforts on Monday when Congress is back in session. It's part of an aggressive push on Twitter, by phone, behind closed doors for the president to net a major legislative achievement ahead of the Senate's August recess in just 2 weeks. The White House is also trying to win over governors skeptical of the Senate's bill and hope that they will help sway undecided lawmakers from their states. Here's what Vice President Pence told them at the National Governors Association on Friday.
I understand and appreciate, as the President does, the concerns that many of you have as we talk about Medicaid in the future going forward. Our administration has paid very close attention to this issue, and we've had discussions with governors around this room and around the country. So let me be clear. President Trump and I believe the Senate health care bill strengthens and secures Medicaid for the neediest in our society.
Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe is a critic of the GOP health care plan. He joins me right now. Good to see you from Rhode Island. So do you agree with what the Vice President just said, that he and the President do think that this plan will help strengthen Medicaid?
Well, from what we've seen so far, we're all up here, the governors here. The National Governors Association, which I'm the chairman of, we have been discussing this for about 3 days up here. The numbers that we have in front of us show that we'll have dramatic cuts to our state budgets and many millions of individuals will lose their health care. We come at this saying we'll take the president at his word during the campaign that everybody should have coverage, that it will be cheaper, and it will be better results. The plans we've seen today, and every governor today was presented an independent analysis that shows that they literally is going to cost their state. In Virginia, I lose $1.4 billion over the next 7 years. We're willing to work with anybody. This is unfortunately has been done in secret. I wish the governors had been at the table. It needs to be done in a bipartisan way, just like the governors work, Democrat, Republican. This has been done in secret. We ought to go to regular order in the Senate. We ought to have hearings, amendments. Bills ought to be introduced, and we all ought to work together. This is the single most important policy initiative facing Americans today is health care, and it needs to be done comprehensively.
And why don't you believe you were called prior or got a visit prior to, Friday during the convention, prior to, the potential unveiling whether there is a vote or not?
And that's a great question, and I, speak to many of the Republican governors as well. There was just no outreach. This was done in the Senate. It was done secretly. And listen, we run these programs. The governors run the Medicaid programs in our states. So, what they do in Washington, we have to implement. It falls on our desk. So what we have consistently said is let us at the table. Let us bring our best practices together, what we do in our different states and our communities. Let us come to the table. We'll work with anybody. We've got to make sure that we get this right on health care. But I can't, as a governor, support a plan that costs $1.4 billion to my budget over the next 7 years, and literally thousands and thousands of Virginians will lose health care coverage. I can't. I got to fight for my citizens. We need a healthy workforce. Everybody is entitled to health care. It is a right.
You introduced the Vice President, in fact, yesterday before that speech. I want to play a little clip of something that you said.
Sure.
We want to work together on health care so that we can provide the best quality health care for our citizens. I thank Vice President Pence. He showed true backbone himself in Indiana when he expanded Medicaid for his citizens. So he understands the challenges that we as governors face to make sure we're providing that quality care.
So were those rather delicate words of encouragement? Was that a jab? What was that?
Well, it's the truth. And I think it's important that while he was a governor, and it's the point I want to introduce him, he had been sitting in this room a year ago with the governors, administering plans, and he expanded for Indiana because he knew it was right in his Hoosier state for his fellow folks in Indiana that expanding Medicaid brought quality care to so many thousands of folks in Indiana. I wanted everybody to know this is what he did. It was the truth. I was very diplomatic in my introduction, but that was just a fact. And it's important that he knows that all these new people got included in health care coverage, and sitting around that table, 31 states have done this. We can't have a program that will eliminate those folks who were part of the Medicaid expansion.
You were also very critical after the House vote, and you said at the time that lawmakers were having too much fun. And you are reminding, you have been reminding, just as you reminded the Vice President, this is about American lives. Is it your concern that politics has come before people?
Frederica, you hit it right on the head. This is the single biggest policy initiative that we are dealing with. People taking care of their families, making sure they are healthy, diagnosing problems early on saves lives, builds a better workforce. And this has become about politics. This is about, they made a pledge that they were going to repeal Obamacare on day one. That's what they promised. Now they're dealt with the reality is they're really playing a game of Twister, trying to figure out how they do this, how they meet a political objective. But this isn't about politics. It's really not. This is policy. This is the biggest policy initiative we have. That's why I'm saying, like the governors, Democrats, Republicans, we're all here together. We put our politics aside when we come in this room. What's in the best interest of our citizens? And I just wish Congress would do the same thing. This is not about political scoring points. People will die. I don't say that lightly. If we do not get this right, and we cannot eliminate folks and take them off. And I've been very critical because the plans today, millions and millions of Americans will lose health coverage. Many will die. Many will become sick. And that's just not the United. We're the greatest nation on earth, and that's just not who we are as a country.
Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, and of course, don't miss a State of the Union tomorrow morning with Jake